On a bitterly cold winter night, I suddenly received a call from my mother-in-law Nancy. Bring the wood for the fireplace to my room, she instructed. What? In this blizzard? I hesitated internally, having already taken a bath. Yet Nancy pressed on. On such a snowy night, it's unreasonable for an old woman like me to walk outside. As a daughter-in-law, you should act without being told. Truly insensitive, she continued to complain over the phone. I had many counter-arguments, but quarreling over such matters seemed pointless. After putting my son to bed, I ventured alone into the snowy night towards the storage shed. It's so cold. But I can't find the wood. Is it not here? Just as I harbored that doubt, the shed was suddenly engulfed in darkness. Startled, I headed for the exit, but the door was locked from the outside, immovable. You're kidding? Locked in. Did Nancy's plan this? I was in despair, not foreseeing what would unfold. I am Mary, a 22-year-old housewife dedicated to maintaining my family. I live with my husband Ken and our soon-to-be 2-year-old son Jason. I lost my father to a traffic accident as a child, and my mother had to find work outside to support our family. While working at a construction company, she single-handedly supported my sisters Meg and me. Despite adversities, she never complained and always kept a smile. A truly remarkable person. Witnessing my mother's resilience, I vowed to work immediately after graduating from middle school, despite advice from teachers and friends to consider high school for a better future. However, my resolve wavered during the last summer of middle school due to my mother's wish for me to continue my education. Learning of my decision not to attend high school, my mother cried, blaming herself. Seeing her cry for the second time since my father's funeral, I couldn't bear to cause her more grief and decided to go to high school. Even so, I started working part-time in high school to help my mother. That's when I met Ken. He was 4 years my senior, a college student working at the same convenience store where I had a part-time job. Among us part-timers, he was a reliable senior figure. Despite my busy life juggling newspaper delivery in the morning and convenience store work after school, he would considerately help me with my tasks, and I gradually grew fond of him. Attracted by his kindness and reliability, I fell for him. When he graduated from college and was about to quit his job, I confessed my feelings, and we began dating. After graduating from high school, I started working at a supermarket. And a year later, I found out I was pregnant. Upon informing both sets of parents about the pregnancy, Ken's parents opposed our marriage because we were too young. However, with my mother's earnest persuasion and Ken's desperate pleas, they reluctantly accepted our union. At 20, we were able to have our wedding. Although Ken has siblings, his parents, especially fond of their eldest son, were reluctant to accept me, raised by a single mother, as their daughter-in-law. The strong attachment Nancy had for her son seemed abnormal to outsiders. When our marriage was decided, she lashed out at me, saying, "Did you think having a child first would ensure you could marry my son? That's sneaky. I have no intention of accepting you into the family." Thus, my anxiety about married life was significant. Our new home was located next to my in-laws. Upon our marriage, Ken's parents purchased the vacant lot next door for our residence. I suggested numerous times to Ken that we reconsider living so close to his parents. However, he dismissed my concerns, saying, "They can help with our child, can't they? There's no problem." After marriage, I realized that Ken was heavily dependent on his mother, a classic mama's boy. He seemed indifferent even when his mother spoke harshly to me. When I was unwell during pregnancy and needed some rest, Nancy criticized me, saying, "My son works hard and you just sleep all day neglecting housework. What do you intend to do?" Angry, I discussed this with Ken, asking him to explain to Nancy that I was advised to rest by the doctor. However, he agreed with Nancy, saying, "Are you saying my mother is wrong? She's right. After all, you're just resting without doing any housework." I couldn't hide my disappointment in his attitude. I used to rely on him when we worked part-time, but now I am worried about our future. My anxiety only grew over time. Then, something shocking happened on a day with heavy snowfall, a once-in-decades event. Ken was out late for a meeting, and while I was putting Jason to bed, Nancy called. "What are you doing, Mary?" Despite telling her I was in the middle of putting Jason to sleep, she asked me to bring wood from the storage shed to her room because she had run out due to the cold. What? Now, in this blizzard? I hesitated after having already bathed. Yet, she pressured me further. An old woman like me shouldn't be out on such a snowy night. As a daughter-in-law, you should act without being told. You're truly insensitive. Although I had many objections, I did not want to start a conflict over this. Eventually, I thought, it must be tough without a stove in this cold, and decided to fulfill her request. After putting Jason to bed, I went to the shed located between our house and my in-laws amidst the snowy landscape. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door, turned on the light, and entered. When I searched the area in the shed where Nancy had directed me, I found no wood. Is there really any wood? I muttered to myself as I reached for my phone, when suddenly everything went dark. What? This has to be a joke, I exclaimed in surprise. I hurried to the exit, but it seemed to be locked from the outside and wouldn't budge. No way, I'm locked in. Did Nancy do this? I sighed softly to myself. I had experienced harassment before, but never imagined she would do anything like this. It was a once-in-decades snowstorm outside, and inside the shed, it was freezing, potentially life-threatening cold. I was also worried about Jason at home. I attempted to contact Ken. "Hello." He sounded clearly intoxicated. "Help, I'm locked in the shed," I pleaded. But he was unfazed, chiding me. "You must have been careless to lock yourself in. Calm down," he replied, blaming me. I felt anger at his response and hung up, saying, "Fine, I won't rely on you. Whatever happens, I don't care." Realizing I had been mistaken to depend on him, I began searching for a way out on my own. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could make out the outline of a small window at the back of the shed. I rushed over, but it was barred, and escape seemed impossible. "I can't get out of here," I said dejectedly, and returned to the door. It was the only entrance, and it wouldn't open. Even in this hopeless situation, I kept looking for a way to escape. I might not make it, I thought. Shivering and exhausted, I took out my phone to call the police. Just as I was tremblingly trying to operate the screen, I heard voices outside. "It's the neighbors," I whispered to myself and called out, "Help!" After shouting several times, the elderly couple next door finally responded. "Are you okay?" They yelled in front of the shed. "I'm locked in and can't get out. Please help!" I pleaded in a voice close to tears, and they quickly opened the door. The couple, seeing me in tears, seemed to realize something significant had happened. They offered, "Why don't you spend the night at our place?" Grateful, I decided to take Jason and spend the night in the warmth of their home. According to the elderly couple, my in-laws were known in the neighborhood for mistreating their daughters-in-law, and my sister-in-law had also been locked in and had a fierce argument. Knowing this, they had been worried about me. I expressed my deep gratitude to them and, exhausted from the ordeal and the snow, slept soundly through the night without waking up. In the morning, something seemed to be happening outside. I quickly got dressed, left Jason with the couple, and went out to see a crowd in front of my house, with ambulances and police cars parked. "What's going on?" I wondered anxiously as I returned home. Ken confronted me angrily. "Where were you, Mary?" I explained. "Last night, I was locked in the shed, and after getting help, I spent the night at the neighbor's house." But his anger did not subside. According to Ken, Nancy was found collapsed in the shed early in the morning. I wondered if she had come to check on me after a night had passed. Last night, as I attempted to escape from the shed, I had disturbed the contents inside, and in the disarray, Nancy must have entered in the dawn hours. She had an accidental fall due to stepping on a ball, hit her head, and was taken to the hospital, where she unfortunately passed away. Ken and father-in-law blamed me, saying, "This is your fault." Despite my protests that I had been locked in the shed, they wouldn't listen. Realizing arguing was futile, I decided to divorce calmly and leave the house with Jason. My brother-in-law Jack declared, "I choose a different path from my father and brother. If Mary leaves, I will also cut ties with the family." My father-in-law and Ken were furious. yelling not to divorce or cut ties arbitrarily. Despite Ken's refusal to divorce, my resolve was firm. It's sad that Nancy died, but I can't forgive what she did to me. I have evidence that I was locked in the shed. If necessary, I will submit the video to the police, I said, grabbing my phone. Ken thought he could invalidate the evidence by destroying the phone, and never admitted his mother's actions. I was astounded by his incomprehension. I informed him, actually, my sister Meg recently got married to a lawyer. The video from the shed can be evidence of emotional damage, and I intend to seek compensation. Let's proceed with the divorce based on that. His demeanor changed rapidly. Wait, Jack is a lawyer. Compensation? You're joking, right? Indeed, what my mother did was too much, and her death was an accident. I'm sorry for everything, but please, can we not divorce? He pleaded. It took a while, but with my mother and Jack negotiating, they convinced Ken and father-in-law to proceed with the divorce. As when I got married, my mother pleaded with them, and with no chance against the lawyer and video evidence, Ken eventually agreed to divorce. Reluctantly, he signed the divorce paperwork, and the divorce was finalized. I gained custody of Jason, and we returned to my parental home. On that snowy day when I was locked in the shed, I was only focused on escaping, not feeling afraid. But as time passed, the memories returned, causing me to panic and cry. With support from Meg and Jack, I decided to seek damages from Ken and father-in-law. The video of my confinement and testimony from the neighbors supported my claim, and the lawsuit was recognized. Initially, Ken and father-in-law firmly refused to give up custody of Jason. However, when I argued, if the neighbors hadn't rescued me, who knows what would have happened to me? Jason could have lost his mother. I cannot let people who easily hurt a child's heart raise him. They were speechless. After that, they stopped talking about Jason's custody. All negotiations after the divorce were conducted through Jack. After I left the house, the reputation of my in-laws' house as a place where daughters-in-law were mistreated spread further, and Ken and father-in-law began to be seen with disdain by the neighbors. Additionally, when Ken's boss at work learned about the mistreatment and that Ken had chosen to attend a drinking party instead of rescuing me on the day of the heavy snow, he was furious, and Ken was demoted. With his standing at work worsened, Ken submitted his resignation and, along with my father-in-law, eventually had to sell their house and land and move elsewhere. Following these events, my brother-in-law and his wife also cut ties with the in-laws. Back at my family home, I asked my mother to scale back her work to help take care of Jason. She was delighted to care for her grandson, and I began working in Jack's office. Having been a housewife since a young age, it was an invigorating experience for me to work and earn a salary. I felt a responsibility to stand firm, as my mother had supported us until now. Later, through Jack, I met her man, a lawyer, who was more than 10 years my senior, very kind and gentle. Jason has become quite fond of him, and we often go out together on weekends. We plan to marry next year, and we are currently building a new house to live in together. It's designed to include office space to coincide with the opening of his new law firm. Additionally, he is considerate of my mother, and the house is being built as a duplex. My mother raised Meg and me on her own. With gratitude for her in my heart, I am enjoying a fulfilling life with my family.